Farmer Tom here. Today on the Farmer Tomcast in our ongoing series, Heroes of the Green, we've got Zane Vorenberg. How's it going, Zane?
Good. How you doing?
Good, buddy. Good. Can you tell the world your story and who on your lifelong mission of cannabis and activism and all the cool stuff that you do?
All right. Well, I spent most of my career as a journalist, and I covered cannabis in various ways that way. First time I started smoking cannabis, I was in junior high school. I think I was about 13. I was a pretty avid smoker in high school. It just kind of chilled me out, and I don't know, it was kind of fun. And I stopped when I was about 18 and didn't smoke again for almost 25 years, I would say. Um, let's see, well, I went to college and I got a degree in science at the University of New Mexico, geology degree. And I also wrote for the paper while I was going through that. But I've had a love of science for my entire career. And got started covering cannabis from the medical side as a journalist, writing for the Albuquerque Tribune. The state was considering opening medical. And I remember I interviewed a medical patient. Her name was Essie. I can't remember her last name. But she had AIDS. She was a nurse and she was very, very sick from AIDS. And it was sort of eye-opening how much cannabis had helped her, because she showed me like a picture of her when she was just really, really sick, super skinny, like could barely move. And then from cannabis on, she regained quite a lot of her weight back. She was still sick, but she was doing much, much better, and her lifespan had extended quite a bit. And talking to her and what she had to do to get cannabis because it was illegal still, and she had like an underground source, and she was a grandmother. And writing about that was pretty eye-opening. I moved forward and kept covering medical cannabis as the state got a little closer to it. This is in the sort of 2000s. And then my newspaper closed. The Albuquerque Tribune folded in 2008, which was a shame because it was a really good, scrappy little underdog paper, willing to take on cannabis despite the stigma as well. And moved up to the Santa Fe New Mexican, which is the state capital of New Mexico, and got to cover more of the sort of medical legalization as I went up there on that side. Continued following Essie. We gave her a different name under the stories, but she was doing well and sort of hardly lobbying the state to go forward with legal medical cannabis. She had sort of a whole troop with her, and eventually she succeeded. But when the Great Recession hit, I got laid off. First, my newspaper closed, and then the Santa Fe, New Mexican laid me off about a year and a half, 2 years later. And so I was sort of no job, wondering what to do. There wasn't a lot hiring, so I just moved up to the Pacific Northwest because I liked it with no job. And I ended up getting hired by the Columbian eventually, right around a little bit before when the state was doing recreational legalization. And I was always supportive of legalization, even when I didn't smoke, because I don't know, it seems not as bad as alcohol was always my thing. And then sort of learning about the medical benefits broadened that out, so I was even more supportive of it. I voted for legalization when the ballot came up in Washington. I'm not sure what year that was. Was it 2012? I think, Tom? Yeah. And then as the industry started churning up, I ended up on that beat, both looking at it from like a scientific and health perspective of like, is this really as bad as people are saying it is? And sort of from a historical perspective of like, why has this been illegal? Why is this becoming legal now? And as a business perspective, also just watching that whole industry spring up out of nothing. And doing that at the Columbian was really interesting. It was pretty eye-opening. as I got into some of the history and some of the science, looking at how much stigma had been thrown at the plant and how much crap just didn't make any sense. And finding out about like Nixon and the scientists who went to him, the medical doctors who went to him and was like, this should be legal, and him finding it as a way to jail like hippies and left wingers and brown people. And looking back even further, it's just stigma against Hispanics way back, in the 20s and 30s. It was, and meanwhile, it's been used as a medicine for thousands, if not tens of thousands of years. So that got me almost into like the activist mode as a reporter, just kind of drilling on it. And we had a policy in place as I was covering all this that you couldn't smoke weed and be a reporter, which seemed kind of ridiculous. And so I think it was about 2014 when legalization and the stores were just about to open that summer. And in the winter, a friend of mine, I had still not been smoking at that point up to about 2014. A friend of mine came in with about a quarter of Master Kush, dropped it on my kitchen table, and said, if you're going to be writing about this, you need to smoke it again. And then just walked out. So I went out to the shop and found myself a little pipe and tried it again. And I had quit drinking alcohol a couple of years before, just because I didn't like what it was doing to me. And pot was like, wow, this is relaxing and it's not beating me up like liquor did. And so then I kind of, all my gourmet beer snob attitude of went into the marijuana appreciation. So I became kind of a connoisseur, and Tom actually helped me a lot, sort of learning about, how the plant grows and all the various strains and how they each work differently. And some of the other local people in the industry, like Cedar Creek Cannabis, they laid out a whole bunch of different types of cannabis in front of me and had me sniff each one when I was a reporter. And that was like, my God, it's so different. There's so much going on here. And so covering that as I was smoking, and I felt really like weird about violating this policy at work that didn't really make sense to me. How can you be, this whole industry is coming about, and yet it's illegal for me to try what this industry is about at my job. And eventually I decided to take a job in the industry, and I kind of jetted off, set up this company's website that I don't really approve of the company, so I'm not going to say who they are. But they were more on the dark side of the industry, I would say. They came from kind of a hustler background, and I didn't stay there all that long. I stayed there to try to help them sort of do a roadmap for the customers of what the different strains were and what everything was like, and build out the website. And I felt like I did that, but then I left and I decided to set up my own website and my own sort of local cannabis coverage site. It was called Cannabis Daily Record. And we did a lot of local coverage, had some good industry support to start off with, and went out to the farm a bunch of times and did some videos of like making bubble hash and some things like that. And using trap plants was another one of Tom's. Just sort of trying to educate and inform. I did a whole bunch of reviews. I would try every new grower in the state and just try to get that information out. Talk to some advocates. I would always open that up to like posts by them, just talking about anything industry related. I think we had Jim McRae do some stuff on his testing work. And then the virus came around as I was also freelancing for a bunch of places. I was freelancing for Marijuana Venture, Sun Grower, a few others, covering legalization across the US. Let's see. I remember the day Trump was elected, I couldn't really focus on that because I was covering legalization of cannabis in several states, and it was a great night for legalization of cannabis. I think we got 4 new states or something out of that. And it was only a few days later that I could process that election after that. Um, and then in the year 2000, when the virus hit, all of my freelance and all of my advertising went belly up. And so I took another job in the industry. This time working for High Five Cannabis in Vancouver. And that was a great job. Just talking to people about weed all the time. You still get to talk to a lot of medical patients and sort of help them figure out what they want to get, and exploring new products. And did that for a little over a year and a half, and then came back to visit my dad and his husband. They're sort of getting on in years, decided I wanted to move back so I didn't miss anymore. And now I'm working for Bud's Goods and Provisions here in Massachusetts, sort of bud tending, running some Dutchy stuff, and still trying to educate people about weed as best as I can. Let's see, I'm also transgender, and I came out, I think, around 2019, and I've been transitioning the past few years. And there's a lot of synergy between the cannabis industry and sort of LGBTQ folks. A lot of us use it to relax, obviously, but also I think it's an industry that's used to being stigmatized. So people that are stigmatized, it's kind of a home for a lot of people like me. I think that should be true more up the chain as well, like the people running these businesses. And you see some of that in Massachusetts. I've seen they're pushing pretty hard for more people of color, more people who've been hurt by the drug industry, getting them licensed, getting them these sort of social justice licenses, and I like that. I haven't been following that as much back west since I moved out here, but there's a whole bunch of very interesting state models going on, and new states are legalizing all the time, and just love watching it happen and making comments here and there, I suppose. So I guess that's my story.